Welcome to this fourth video in the series on the Sustainable Performance Framework from TAP Solutions. With me today, I've got the CEO of TAP Solutions, Anthony Ryland. Welcome, Anthony.
Good to be back.
So let's explore overcoming barriers to performance. Could you tell the audience, what is this facet really about?
Well, this is probably my favorite facet, and I would probably say that about all of them, wouldn't I? But this fourth facet, overcoming barriers to performance, to me is all about pivoting. Because the first three facets we can put in place, we can build foundations of well-being, we can then set up enduring well-being practices, and we can put in the high performance basics. We have the operating model for the organization, but the world doesn't work completely 100% efficiently and effectively. Things change, things go wrong, unexpected things happen. So when performance dips, we need to be ready to actually overcome those barriers to performance. And I think too many organizations struggle with this. There's loads of surveys out there that are saying having things like challenging conversations is the one thing we wish we could do better in our organization. So why is it important? Well, actually, challenging conversations are challenging because there's usually differing points of view and there's something at stake when we have that conversation. If you think you're trying to talk to someone about how they're not particularly doing something well, then actually there's something at stake there, and the end result can go in many different ways. So having a challenging conversation is an opportunity to raise performance, but too often we don't have those challenging conversations. And then growth mindset is essentially not a fixed mindset. And in our VUCA world that we live in, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, then we need to be able to adapt and grow and change as organizations. So having all our people with a growth mindset, so they're not accepting that they're going to do things tomorrow like they did things yesterday, it's a really important thing to have.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing. And you mentioned there are a couple of reasons why it's important. I mean, as you look at the overall five facets here, is there anything that particularly for you stands out as this is kind of hyper essential to the organization?
Yeah, I mean, I can't underestimate or understate how important these two areas are. When I work in organizations, it always amazes me that we don't invest enough in our line managers. And when I'm talking about that, it's about giving line managers confidence to have these challenging conversations. And I think if you think about Kerry Pattinson and they wrote a book to say that these challenging conversations are when stakes are high, opinions differ, and emotions run strong. And if you talk to most line managers, they say, no, I'll do that tomorrow. It's okay, I'll do that tomorrow. And what happens is if you leave poor performance and don't have those challenging conversations, then the rest of the team notice that someone who's not performing well is allowed to not perform well. And going back to what we spoke about last time around people attaching their motivations into the organization to create ownership, then actually what happens is those motivations drop in the rest of the team. So by not dealing with the poor performance on one individual, line managers can essentially flatten the performance of everyone else. And I think that's why it's absolutely so important. That one component there is the pivot point that then releases an organization to perform, or it stunts the organization so it can't perform at its best.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing. I was just curious as well for this facet, as you look at challenging conversations and growth mindset, what would be some pragmatic tips that a listener could take away to improve their ability to overcome the barriers to performance?
Yeah, it's interesting this one, and I think we almost have to do a Michael J. Fox and go back to the future here, because in a previous video we talked about things like open feedback, and open feedback is that exchange of data, giving and receiving feedback. If you think about it, challenging conversations is the giving and receiving of feedback between two parties, but the stakes are high, opinions differ, and emotions run strong.
Mm.
So setting up a culture that accepts open feedback means that you can diminish that level of emotionality and charged environment that exists inside of a challenging conversation. So I think a real big learning for organizations is actually go and set the groundwork so that your challenging conversations are easier to have. And then I think also give your line managers the skills to deal with challenging conversations. There are methodologies out there that you can use, but also give them the space to practice in a safe environment so they can build those skills up. So when the crucial moment happens, they feel confident walking into that meeting or dialing into the meeting to make sure that they're dealing with it in a way that is acceptable for all parties. So the changing conversations, absolutely. The growth mindset, that is about when you're receiving end of one of these challenging conversations, is about saying, oh, that's interesting. That's new thoughts. That's new experiences from other people I'm hearing about. I'm going to accept that in a positive way and take that and play with it in a way that I can try out new things to be a better version of myself. I might not have agreed with all of it, but let's take it as that piece of data and let's be playful in our way of how we're going to improve, and always thinking that all this stuff you're hearing about your performance is a way to be a better version of yourself. And that's the growth mindset.
Fantastic. Thank you, Anthony. So, Anthony Ryland, CEO of Top Solutions, thanks for your time today. To the listeners, thank you for listening. We've got one final video, which is all around delivering results. We look forward to sharing Anthony's thoughts with you in that video. Thanks for listening.